My name is Nam Vaughn. I'm 29 years old, and I've spent most of my life trying to prove I'm not just the mistake that came after my parents got lucky twice. My brother, Cassius, has always been the family's golden boy. Charming, reckless, the kind of man people forgive before he even apologizes. I was the quiet one, the fixer, the fallback plan when things went sideways, which in my family was often. While Cass was blowing tuition money in poker rooms, I was pulling night shifts to pay off the credit card bills no one remembered racking up. For years, I told myself loyalty meant love. But when my parents called me at 2 a.m., demanding $15,000 to save him, something inside me finally cracked. And that crack was all it took to expose the fraud, the lies, and the betrayal buried deepest in our blood. The phone rang 4 times before I answered. 2:13 a.m. Mom's voice was already mid-hysteria. He's in agony, Nam. They're withholding pain meds until we pay the hospital bill. 15 grand. That's all they need. Please, baby. I sat upright in bed, blinking into the dark. My room was cold. Always was. No heat after 11 unless I paid extra. She didn't pause for breath. Cass is screaming. Screaming. You want him to suffer? You want your own brother to. Call your perfect son, I said. Then I ended the call, pulled the battery from my phone, and dropped it to the floor. The quiet afterward was a kind of violence. No sirens, no sobs, just my own breathing. I closed my eyes and let the dark do what it does best, swallow everything. Cut. I woke at 6:47 a.m. to Denver's winter bleeding through my blinds. Tiled floor, cold coffee, dead phone. Plugged it in, let it breathe. 49 missed calls, 17 voicemails. Unknown number. The screen flashed again. I hesitated, then answered. Mr. Vaughn, a calm male voice said. This is Gabriel Chin, legal representative for Hard Rock Tahoe Resort and Casino. Your name has been flagged as co-guarantor on a $50,000 credit marker used by Cassius Vaughn. We need to resolve this quickly. I froze. I'm sorry, what? The lawyer didn't flinch. Cassius attempted to draw a line of credit using your credentials. The casino accepted under the assumption that you had consented. The signature matches your previous bank forms. The address traces to your former lease in Henderson. I never signed anything. Nevertheless, the casino will hold you liable unless the amount is disputed through formal legal channels. That includes processing fees, time-sensitive. His voice clicked sharper. We have surveillance, documentation, and the marker form in our possession. I suggest you review it. We'll send a copy. Then he hung up. Cut. Laptop. Email inbox. One new message. Vaughn, markercopy.pdf. I clicked. There it was. My signature. Slanted V, flat N. The same rhythm I used when I signed my college loan a decade ago. Someone hadn't forged it. Someone had copied it. I reached into my nightstand drawer, pulled out a dusty folder. Lease agreement, dated 2017. My signature, identical, down to the loop in the G. Cassius had gotten access, or someone had. He cloned me. They don't destroy you by fire, I whispered. They do it by memory. Cut. 10:13 a.m. The phone buzzed again. Blocked number. I let it ring once. Twice. Picked up. Static. Then Mom's voice, low, cracked. He could die, Nam. You'll let your own blood bleed out over money. The line went dead before I could answer. Another ping. Text from Dad. You're not family anymore. Then another ping. Cassius. They're coming for you next, little brother. Run. I stared at the screen, and it blinked once, then blacked out. If you don't pay up by Friday, Mr. Vaughn, we escalate. And trust me, you don't want that kind of attention. The coffee was burnt, the kind that coats your mouth with bitterness and metal. I let it go cold while staring at my own betrayal in black and white. My name, my handwriting, My goddamn signature on a $50,000 marker I never signed. There are two kinds of theft. The one where they take what's yours and the one where they make the world believe you gave it away. I called my old leasing office in Henderson. Played it polite. Did anyone request my file recently? Long pause. Clicking keyboard. Oh yeah, last week. A family member, right? Said you were moving again. Can you describe them? I can't really. I ended the call. Cut. The IP logs on my online bank account showed 2 logins. One from Reno, one from Henderson. Both within the past 10 days. Both flagged as device not recognized. Whoever it was didn't just steal my identity. They rehearsed it. They moved through my life like it belonged to them. Cassius always said, you don't need to be smart if you're confident enough to lie with detail. I never thought he was being literal. I needed help. The kind of help that doesn't wear a suit. Tessa Brooks lived in a co-op building that looked like it had collapsed inward from sheer pessimism. She was barefoot when she opened the door. You look like shit, she said, brushing pink bangs out of her eyes. I'm being hunted by my family, I replied. She blinked. Oh, so it's Tuesday. We sat in her home office. Her cat watched me like I owed it rent. I handed her a flash drive with the PDF. Her eyes moved fast. Okay, damn. That's not a forgery. I know. But you didn't sign it. No. She leaned back. Then it's a deep fake. High level. They used a real doc you did sign, lease maybe? Trained a handwriting AI on it. How do you even know this stuff? Because I used to do it for hedge funds, she said, smirking. You think rich people just sign NDAs the old-fashioned way. That night, I left Tessa's place with one new truth. The signature was a synthetic match, cloned from public records. I checked my bank again. The login from Reno had downloaded my W-2s. Someone was building a complete me, for profit. They didn't just want to rob me. They wanted to wear me. Garage. Night. Tires screeched. Black SUV. Too fast. Too close. I threw myself sideways behind a dumpster. The SUV didn't stop. No plate. No lights. Just vanished into 25 like a shadow swallowed whole. I waited. My hands were shaking. One thought spun louder than the rest. They know I'm not backing down. I called Mom. You really need to stop with the drama, she said before I could speak. Cass is sick. He needs help. You always made it about yourself. I'm under investigation, I snapped. For a loan I didn't take. A casino I've never stepped foot in. Silence. Then, he didn't mean for it to go this far. So you knew. You've always had a flair for being the victim. I hung up before I could scream. Family doesn't stab you in the back. They do it from the front, with a hug. I went home. Mailbox key turned stiff. Something jammed. Inside, one item. A plain black USB. No return address. No note. My apartment felt colder than usual. The hallway too quiet. I pulled all my blinds shut before plugging in the drive. Folder popped open. One file. Video.mp4. I clicked. The screen stayed black for a second too long. Then, my face. My voice. I watched myself, or a perfect copy, speak into a camera. I, Nam Vaughn, accept full financial responsibility for the debts incurred by my brother Cassius Vaughn at Hard Rock Tahoe. I vomited in the sink. They weren't just cloning my life. They were preparing to end it. One carefully doctored confession at a time. If someone played that tape for a judge, I was finished. I wasn't being watched. I was being replaced. I didn't sleep. Every sound felt personal. Pipes creaking. Cars outside. My own breath catching on nothing. At 5:14 a.m., I grabbed my backpack, loaded it with the essentials, hard drive, burner phone, passport, and left my apartment without turning on the lights. By 5:26 a.m., I was on the road, headed north. No plan, just movement, because movement, even without direction, felt safer than standing still. Cut. Tessa called 3 hours later. You were right, she said. There's metadata in that video file. GPS tag. She paused. Your apartment's coordinates. They filmed that deep fake inside your home, Nom. The steering wheel felt slippery under my grip. I didn't respond. Someone's been in your place. They didn't just steal your data. They've been watching you live. The silence between us buzzed like a wire about to snap. You need to vanish, she whispered. I'm already gone. I reached the Colorado-Utah border by noon. No plats flagged. No drone in sight. But paranoia isn't about logic. It's about pattern. And my life had stopped making sense 3 days ago. I pulled into a gas station, bought a prepaid SIM, checked news headlines, buried halfway down a finance blog. Exclusive. Former tech analyst named in casino identity fraud scandal. Photo attached. Me. Smiling. At a company barbecue from 3 years ago. The article was light on facts, heavy on implication. Nom Vaughn fled the Denver area early this morning. My legs almost buckled. They didn't just build a lie. They gave it a pulse. A sedan parked across the lot. Driver stayed inside. Black hoodie. Sunglasses. Too still. Too deliberate. I paid cash. Walked out slow. Phone ready in one hand, knife in the other. As I passed, I caught a glimpse. His eyes flicked to mine. Then to the glove box. He reached down. I didn't wait. I sprinted behind the station. Vaulted the concrete divider, hit the ditch hard. Ran through brush, across train tracks, back to the car from the opposite side. Started the engine. Peeled out. Rear view mirror. The sedan didn't follow. But I'd seen the logo on his jacket. Vex Score. The offshore firm listed on the casino documents. They weren't sending lawyers anymore. They were sending people. I drove for hours without stopping. Desert turned to plains. Sun dropping fast. At dusk, I pulled into an old RV park near Vernal. Cash only. No cameras. Shower smelled like mildew and bleach. I sat at the edge of the mattress, staring at the USB drive like it might combust. One truth could burn 10 lies, or expose 10 more. I plugged it into my laptop. Files opened. Layers. Spreadsheets. Transaction histories. One folder named Alt-AUTH, Project Nomad. Inside, payment records from 3 casinos, offshore account transfers, internal memos. One name repeated, Cassius Vaughn, but he wasn't listed as debtor. He was listed as tech consultant, under aliases. Cassius wasn't drowning. He was swimming laps around me. A new file, hidden inside encrypted metadata. Audio only. Click. Crackling. Voices. Mail. Vaughn's just the shell. The real product's his code. You keep him happy or he nukes everything. Then another voice. He's slipping. Brought in his brother. Wants leverage. Leverage. A fallback. If he goes down, he takes the kid with him. My ears rang. I wasn't insurance. I was collateral. Wind outside picked up. Trailer shook. Lights flickered. I yanked the USB. Slid it into my boot. Checked the window. Nothing. But something felt wrong. Still. Too still. I stepped out with my flashlight. Gravel crunched under boots. Cold air sliced my lungs. Flicked light toward the edge of the lot. A figure. Hoodie. Not moving. I blinked. Gone. I turned back to the trailer, heart in my throat. My door was open. I hadn't left it that way. The door to the trailer hung open like a mouth caught mid-scream. No sound. No movement. Just the hum of an old ceiling fan spinning slow, like it was pretending nothing happened. I stepped inside. The air was wrong. Heavy. Warm. Someone had been here minutes ago. My backpack had been unzipped. Clothing tossed. Laptop flipped open. mattress dented, but nothing stolen. They weren't searching. They were signaling. A warning. Or a promise. Someone who wants you scared doesn't need to hurt you, I muttered under my breath. Fear does the carving for them. Cut. I grabbed the hard drive, the USB tucked in my boot, and walked out without looking back. The sky was starting to lighten, a pale bruise pushing against the horizon. By 6:40 a.m., I was on the highway again, heading deeper into Utah. Nothing but asphalt and static. Every passing car felt like a threat. Every shadow holding shape felt like a watcher. One truth about running: the road doesn't save you. It just buys time. At 9:12 a.m., an address popped into my mind uninvited. The Old Vaughn Ranch. A place my father called a memory that never ages. Remote. Dust-filled. A childhood ghost town. If he ever kept secrets, he kept them there. My hands tightened on the wheel. I turned south. The ranch sat at the edge of a dried riverbed, boards warped from years of neglect. The windows looked blind. Rusted nails. Dust thick enough to write regret on. I kicked the door. Hinges groaned. Inside was everything I remembered. The dead fireplace. The old leather sofa. The smell of cedar and disappointment. I swept my flashlight across the room. Dust motes spun like ash. Then I saw the photo wall. My childhood smile frozen under cracked glass. Cassius in his baseball jersey. Mom holding a cake. Dad's hand on my shoulder, firm, claiming. A lie captured in perfect clarity. One frame sat crooked. I pulled it off the wall. Behind it, a bolt. A faint outline. A cut in the drywall. A hidden safe. My breath stumbled. Numbers etched into the metal. 101795. My birthday. I turned the dial. Click. The safe opened with a sigh. Inside, USB drives. A stack of forged IDs. Offshore account listings. And one folder labeled VexScore, primary shareholders. I flipped it open. My father's name was first. Cut. Wind hammered the side of the ranch as if the desert wanted in. I scanned transaction receipts, Cassius's aliases everywhere. He wasn't gambling. He wasn't in debt. He was working. Tech consultant, pipeline builder, data architect for the laundering ring. And every mistake he ever made, every bailout my family begged me for, a lie, a script, a system they had built together. I felt sick. You weren't the victim, I whispered. You were the blueprint. A hum filled the air. Low, mechanical. I stepped outside. A drone hovered at tree height. Black, mute, watching. It tilted slightly, tracking me. Not today. I grabbed a rock and hurled it. The drone jerked back, dodged, and climbed fast into the sky. Not surveillance. Targeting. I bolted toward the back fence, feet pounding dirt, heart punching ribs. Then headlights. A black SUV tore over the ridge, engine screaming. I dove behind a boulder. Gravel stung my face. Tires spit dust inches from my legs. The SUV circled, slow. Hungry. I pressed the USB tighter in my boot. A voice echoed in my mind, something Tessa once told me over cheap whiskey. Sometimes survival is just choosing which fear to obey. I chose movement. I sprinted across the field, lungs on fire, clipped a fence post, stumbled, kept going. Bullets kicked dust at my ankles. The drone dropped low, buzzing like an insect with a grudge. I slid down a steep embankment, rolling hard, body bruising against rock and thorn. Hit ground. Hard. Silence. The SUV couldn't follow. The drone backed off, rising higher, then vanished into the horizon like it was never there. I lay in the dirt, chest heaving, blood in my mouth, sweat burning my eyes. And somehow, beneath all the pain, something colder formed. Resolve. Because if they were willing to kill me, that meant I had something worth killing for. I staggered to my feet. If I die tonight, I whispered. They win everything. My fingers closed around the USB. Time to end this. Snow hammered the windshield as I limped the borrowed truck into Boulder. Body bruised. Lip split. USB in my boot like a burning secret. Salvage lived underground, literally. A converted storm shelter beneath a condemned duplex. Perfect for people like him. Perfect for people like me now. He opened the steel hatch before I even knocked. You look like you lost a fight with a lawnmower, he said. I lost a fight with my family. Same thing. Cut. Inside, the space buzzed with servers and humming wires. A wall of monitors. Screensavers like shifting constellations. Maps. Emails. Financial trails. My life. My destruction. I handed him the USB. He plugged it in. No questions. Just concentration. 10 minutes of silence. Then, holy hell, this is an amateur hour. He spun his chair. These deep fakes? Government level. Whoever made these has access to tech that isn't public. I know, I said. My brother. Your brother built this? I nodded. Salvage gave a low whistle. Man, someone once told me, the sharpest knife is the one you never see coming. Guess that was him. The truth sat heavy. Cassius wasn't drowning. He was profit. He was leverage. He was the architect of everything unraveling my life. And worse, he was enjoying it. We spent hours decoding files, building timelines, linking aliases. Every layer revealed another lie. It wasn't gambling debt. It wasn't desperation. It was a laundering pipeline. 3 casinos. 2 law firms. 1 political backer. All connected through VexScore. And at the center, Cassius Vaughn, tech consultant, data handler, the golden boy of organized, clean crime. Salvage leaned forward, tapping the screen. See this? These recurring initiations. Triggered every time your identity gets flagged. They built a whole route that funnels blame directly to you. They were grooming me for this, I said. More than that, you're their parachute. If anything pops, the fall breaks on your spine. Cut. I texted Tessa. Need a safe place to send files. Press contacts. Law enforcement. Anyone who won't fold. She replied almost instantly. You're scaring me. But yes. Send everything. We set up a dead man's switch. Classic failsafe. Every 72 hours, I had to log in. Otherwise, the full dump would blast to journalists, regulators, and the FBI simultaneously. Salvage looked at me. This is the kind of thing people die for. People are already trying to kill me, I said. Might as well make it count. He cracked a grin. That's the spirit. Someone once said courage isn't about not being afraid. It's choosing something worth the fear. I didn't feel courageous. I felt cornered. And cornered animals bite. The burner phone buzzed. Unknown caller. I hesitated. Then answered. A breath. A familiar one. Then a voice that made my skin split. Little brother. Cassius. I didn't speak. He chuckled softly. You're making a mess of things, Nam. Dad says you've taken something that doesn't belong to you. You forged my signature. You always hated responsibility. You deep-faked me. You always hated who you were. I merely improved you. Every word was a blade. Cassius inhaled, slow, deliberate. Let's not turn this into something irreversible. Come meet me. Hear me out. No. You don't have a choice. You're already in this. You think I'd let you run around with a loaded gun? You're an emotional liability. Where? He dropped an address in Denver. Rooftop. Snowstorm incoming. If you don't come, he said, I'll assume you're willing to die for your fantasies. I'm not the one with fantasies, Cassius. No, he replied. You're the one with delusions. Cut. Salvage didn't want me going. You walk into that meeting, you might not walk out. Guys like him, Charming sociopaths with a hero complex are the ones who burn the world because they think the ashes look better. I need the truth. You already have enough truth to bury him. I need his truth, the one he hides from everyone. He sighed. Wear the recorder, and keep your hands visible unless you want a bullet in one. The rooftop was a knife edge of wind and ice. Denver below looked like a breathing organism, lights pulsing through the snow. Cassius stood near the ledge. Perfect posture, perfect coat, a man built for cameras. He turned when he heard my steps. Smile warm, eyes dead. Nom, he said, spreading his arms. I was worried you wouldn't come. I almost didn't. But you did, because you always do. That's why you're perfect for this. He stepped closer. You think all this happened to you, he murmured. But it happened through you. You're the door. You always were. Vex score. The laundering ring. The offshore accounts. I saw everything. That's the appetizer, he said. Not the meal. What's the meal? He leaned in. Voice velvet and venom. You're not a victim of this system, Nom. You're the final piece. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? He smiled wider. Calm. Certain. You want the truth? Everything collapses without your confession. And then he whispered. You were never meant to walk away. I pressed the recorder in my pocket. He noticed. Smirked. You always were the weak one, Nom, he said softly. Let's see what happens when little brother tries to play hero. Snow peeled sideways through the air like broken glass. Cassius lunged. I sidestepped, pivoted fast. He grabbed my jacket collar. I slammed my shoulder into his chest. We crashed onto the icy rooftop. Fists, elbows, breathless curses. I tasted blood. He straddled me. This was supposed to be clean, Nom. You were supposed to disappear. I reached for the recorder. Too late. He'd already ripped it from my pocket. He laughed. You think a toy mic makes you untouchable. No, I said. But you forget. Click. A red dot blinked from my jacket's inner lining. The backup recorder. Still live. His smirk twitched. Clever. Learned from the best. Cut. Blue and red lights bloomed below. Sirens shredded the night. Helicopter blades cut shadows over us. Tessa had called them. She'd forwarded the files. The timer on the dead man's switch ticked 0 at 6:48 p.m. Everything had triggered. Reporters, prosecutors, federal agents. I saw movement at the rooftop door. Cassius Vaughn, a voice bellowed. Step away from him. Hands up. Cassius looked at me one last time. No fear. No regret. Just disappointment. You always needed rescuing, he said. Then raised his hands, slow, deliberate. He didn't run. He surrendered like it was theater. Because to him, this was never about justice. It was about the performance. Cut. 3 weeks later. The Vaughn estate froze. Accounts seized. Assets liquidated. The press called it the perfect family facade. The feds called it a digital laundering network embedded in family trust law. But to me, it was the end of pretending. Mom cried at the arraignment. Dad never looked at me. His son was a scandal. But I had always been the shame. You took everything from us, Mom hissed. No, I said, I just took it back. You were nothing without us. That was the point. I moved to a smaller town outside Flagstaff. Changed my number. No social media. No trail. I worked at a used bookstore. Simple. Anonymous. Sometimes I stared at the dusty spines of mystery novels. Sometimes I laughed at how they got it all wrong. The truth doesn't come in neat chapters. It oozes. It stains. It burns. Tessa visited once. She brought lemon bars. We sat on the porch in silence until she said, You know, a guy once told me that you don't escape your family. You just survive them. I looked at her. That guy was me, I said. She smiled. You still sound surprised. Sometimes I forget I made out. Cut. Months passed. One rainy Thursday I got a letter. No return address. Just 3 words. You won nothing. Inside was a photo. Me, taken through my window. Recent. Too recent. I checked the locks. Sat on the floor with my back to the door. I stared at the photo. My breath slowed. Because here's the thing no one tells you about surviving monsters. They don't vanish. They evolve. And sometimes they watch. But I wasn't the same either. I'd learned something in that rooftop war, in those calls, in the lies and recordings and blood. Monsters aren't born. They're made by silence, by power, by families that trade truth for convenience. Someone once said, the first betrayal teaches you how to wear armor. The second teaches you how to forge it. I wasn't armorless anymore. Let them watch. Let them whisper. Because I'd burned the mask. And now I lived unmasked. Alone. But real. No more proving. No more surviving. Just breathing. Finally. And that, after everything, was everything.